Hello, everyone. I hope that you are doing well. I'm awkwardly looking down because I just recorded this whole post and realized I had never pressed record. So, hopefully, we are on now. And I hope that you guys are all having a good weekend. I have a lot to talk about today, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. First, I wanted to make just a general announcement that we are almost to spring break. So we have this upcoming week when we will finish gifted education programming. Then we'll take a week off for spring break and we'll jump back in and we'll start our next module on the invisible gifted. I did want to point out that I will actually be out of the country during spring break. So if you email me and I take a little bit longer to respond, it's because I am sleeping in a hammock in Nicaragua. I'm leading a study abroad trip with Winthrop. So I will be working, but I will not be working here. So I will try my best to respond as quickly as I can, but if I'm delayed more than usual, then that would be why. A couple of notes. I haven't been able to talk to you, at least talk like this, about your philosophy statements yet. So I wanted to make a few just solid points here. Overall, you did a really great job on this. I think it was an awesome opportunity for you to just tell me how you really feel, kind of freed from that stress of being sure that you are citing your sources correctly and things like that. I was very impressed that several of you still brought in lots of references, although it was not required. That really shows me that you're using the material and starting to apply it to your personal life. So that was exciting for me to see. I was most intrigued by the answers to who is responsible for gifted education. Several of you even proposed that society as a whole is responsible. So we can't say it's all teachers. We also have to think about the importance of parents and think about the importance of just overall society. That is a really interesting point. I probably would not have proposed that on my own, but the more I read it, I agree. When we think about gifted education, it's not constricted to the four walls of the classroom. So, of course, we should be thinking about serving those children outside of school as well as within school. That does directly relate to another point that I was very happy to see several of you mention, and that is that we have to be careful to advocate for gifted students, especially if there are students who may not have those advocates at home. So, for example, think about this week's case study. So we have a case of a gifted education teacher. First day at work, the principal comes to him and says, all right, we have some parents. They want to meet with you, and they want an overview of gifted education. That should tell you a lot right there. You have some interested parents who are advocated and who want to know what's going on. That is not going to be the same for every single context. And I was really pleased to see in your philosophy statements that a lot of you mentioned that and mentioned the importance of we cannot constrict these services to students who may have more support at home. So making sure that we have equal representation, and you'll see in that next module on the invisible gifted that there are intense issues of underrepresentation in gifted. It is a big problem. It is one that we are working on, but is very difficult. So I'm excited for us to dig into that next module when we start talking about how do we ensure that all students are advocated for, regardless of what kind of environment they may be coming from. So that is a pretty good lead-in to our work this week. So we have reviewed all of the materials in the library related to programming, and I've already taken a sneak peek at some of your discussion posts evaluating that program in terms of best practices. And honestly, it's a pretty good proposal. It's pretty lengthy. It's clearly well thought out. There's a lot of definitions within it. It's not perfect. There's definitely some things that need to be improved. But one thing that is super impressive about this proposal is the fact that there is a committee. So a lot of times with gifted education, it's a lonely field, honestly, because there is usually one gifted teacher. And oftentimes there's one gifted teacher for like multiple schools. So the fact that this proposal includes a committee to review the gifted education programming, that's a positive thing. That's definitely telling me that the program is designed to keep up with best practices and also to keep up with the diverse and often changing needs of the students. So I won't say much more about the case study because it's directly related to your next assignment. So for this coming week, we actually have a small group project. Don't let that concern you. It's pretty well organized, so it shouldn't be difficult for you all to communicate with each other. So at the end of that case study, it talks about this committee. So your challenge this week is to assume the role of this committee. So you will meet in small groups and discuss three things. So you're discussing any potential improvements for the proposed program, any potential deletions, things that should not be there, and any potential additions. Okay, so you're working in these groups to talk to each other about what do we like, what do we not like. If we were to report back to the gifted specialist, what kind of advice would we give? So a couple of logistics here. I decided to just go ahead and assign your groups. I went back and forth on that, but I wanted to assign groups so that you had the entire week to work on this rather than me giving that lag time for you to sign up and then start communicating. Plus, you guys have all been really excellent so far this semester, so I'm not concerned about this at all. So logistically, how do you find your group? Go on to our Blackboard page. There is a red button on the left, conveniently labeled Small Work Groups. Okay, we have 4 different groups. You will either have groups of 3 or 4, and I have already assigned you in there. So you can log into that Small Work Groups link and directly email each other from there. So as a group, tell me again improvements, additions, and deletions. You are welcome to write this up in more of a bulleted list as long as you're still giving a narrative response in those bullets. So I'm not looking for like a paper or an essay. I'm just looking for something deliverable that you would give to that gifted education specialist. Usually when my students do this kind of project with groups online, they will initially contact each other through Blackboard, and then they typically set up like a Google Doc or something related to that. So I wanted to suggest that would be a good, very practical option. If you have trouble connecting with each other, then let me know. I can work with you with that. That should be the least of your worries, okay? Last logistic thing is that I do ask that everyone in the group submits the work. So I realize that means I'll get 5 of the same thing or 4 of the same thing. But it's just easier that way. And I know as a student that really stressed feeling of did so-and-so actually remember to submit. So that will ensure that I have a copy from everyone. Okay, so I'm excited to hear what these committees say about this gifted programming. I will give you a hint that the best resource in your library for this next assignment would be those NAGC gifted programming standards. So those are like a list of, it's like a constitution for gifted education. So if you're looking for a really distinct and concise source of best practices, I would start there. It's a good kind of blueprint for what you're going for. And you can either say, look, this proposed program does well with this standard, but we could do a little bit better with this next standard. I do ask that you remember to use the library sources to support your answers. So this is not just what you think, this is what we think based on our resources. And as always, we're correctly citing those and giving credit when we need to. Okay, so this is our final week before spring break, so I hope that you guys are all doing well, and as always, I'm here to answer any questions, and I hope to help you guys in any way that I can. All right. Say bye, Mass. Thanks, guys.